So, good afternoon, everybody. Here we are again. It's this lovely November. Well, I'm not sure where you are, but it's very cold now here in the United Kingdom to our wonderful coffee talks. Yes, another series. And today we have some lovely guests, a wonderful Mamata from our Heartfulness Magazine, but I'm sure she'll introduce herself. So today, these guys have taken a wonderful article, A Life in the Day. Yes, A Life in the Day. I wonder what that's about. So I am Alka Patel, Heartfulness trainer here in London, and I am a teacher and was a businesswoman. So what I'd like today is ask everyone to please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm James Dixon. I've been a Heartfulness practitioner for about 3 years or so. I work in the financial services sector here in London, and I live with my wonderful wife, Paridhi.
Hi everyone, I'm Paridhi, James's wife, and I'm also training to be a solicitor at the moment in London, and I've been a Heartfulness practitioner for 4 years. And I'd love to invite Mamata to introduce herself.
Thank you. It's nice to hear about both of you and nice to be able to be here with all of you. My name is Mamata Venkat. I'm based in the United States. I'm an editor and contributor for the Heartfulness Magazine. I'm a co-host for a new podcast called The Unexpected Gurus, which is all about storytelling. And I've been practicing heartfulness meditation for the last 10 years.
Fantastic. Lovely set of people today. So guys, you've chosen this wonderful article. Honestly, when you chose, I was like, whoa, but let's bring it on. Slide one, please, let's discuss.
Yeah, so this article, it was just from Heartfulness Magazine. It's about an Indian potter, Ira Chaudhary, who's a potter and ceramicist based in Delhi. She's 93, and as the article suggests, zest of life is unmatched. And Paridhi and I just both really enjoyed this article. It's got a very interesting look at her life, her journey in becoming a celebrated, internationally renowned potter, and her journey, her philosophy to how she does pottery. And there's some sort of interesting quirks about how she approaches work and how she got into it. So we thought it was quite an interesting read.
Mm. So thanks, James, for doing that. And if you'd like to enlighten us more, because I think there's more to this, isn't there, James?
Yeah, so, well, actually, I think, well, Paridhi, maybe if you want to chat a little bit about how pottery works, I think, and then...
Yeah, so sure. So pottery is an ancient art and scientific form that has been practiced in ancient civilizations, whether it's Harappan, Egyptian civilization till modern day. And pottery is basically the art of taking clay, so earth as we know it, and transforming it through a series of techniques into the vessels that you can use, like this wonderful elephant coffee cup that I'm drinking some tea from. So basically, there are 5 steps to pottery. I won't really go into a lot of detail, but it's just, out of interest, and I think it will help us understand the article a bit better. But the first step is wedging the clay. So imagine clay, when you get it, is like a dough. So you wedge the clay to get the air bubbles out. Then you throw it on a pottery wheel, and that process is called throwing. Then you shape it into the particular size you want it. And after that, you take it off the wheel and then you allow it to dry. So there's the drying out stage. The 4th stage then is glazing, at which you put the colors like you can see in the photo. So that bowl in the photo is the one that I've made. And the 5th and final step is firing, where you fire the pieces, the earth, and that allows it to have a durable form. And that is the form in which we later on use the pottery and the pieces that come off it. So yeah, that's a little.
Yeah, so you actually made what we can see in front of us.
Yes, I actually have it on call as well. So this is one. I made it in Japan.
Yeah, I love your link, Perry. Mamata, have you done anything like this before?
You know, I did when I was a little girl. When I was younger, my parents sent my brother and me to this really cool arts camp called Common Space, and we got to watch people throw pottery, and then sometimes we got to be involved in it. It's not something that I continued to do as I got older, but I remember doing it as a kid, and I remember how relaxing it felt to have the clay in my hand, to be able to throw the pottery on the wheel, and then how relaxing it was to watch other people make pottery too. There's something very calming and very soothing about the whole entire practice.
I mean, from a teacher's point of view, we, you know, especially when you're younger, the children are younger, it's all about the motor skills. But as they get older, and especially we use it for therapy, it's a therapeutic, but I shan't go on. So I know that the article is linked with this pottery, guys. Could you share a little bit more about the article?
So I think, I mean, it's quite an interesting piece where Ira says, I cannot claim that I was fascinated by pottery. I was not. I trained to be a painter only to realize that I was not going to be one. And I think it was quite interesting to read that despite the fact that when you see her pieces, you would think she's naturally born and probably is quite gifted in doing pottery, that she actually wasn't particularly interested in it. And we thought that that was quite interesting. James, I don't know if you want to talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, it was just quite a sort of interesting sort of idea that you would not necessarily come to it. You know, I think we talk a lot about, you know, having a passion or something that, you know, an obvious career that you're leaping towards. And obviously she was in the arts, and she's got into it via her husband, and it's quite interesting to sort of an idea that you could sort of through trying these different things, firstly have the humility to realize that actually you're not going to make it as a painter, and then to suddenly have the sort of the good fortune and the kind of, I suppose, presence of mind to think actually pottery is something I can really sort of go for and do. And this idea that she was going for something, you know, I mean, painting is quite different in terms of what you've got to do, how the motor skills involved, all of that kind of thing, and to kind of move into pottery is quite a sort of I don't know, there's something quite sort of interesting about that approach. I think we always think about artists as being like these sort of driven people who naturally would have gone into a subject, but this woman sort of came upon it and in quite a kind of pragmatic way came to find
So are you saying this came later on in her life?
She was still quite young, I think. She's still in her sort of 20s, but I think she'd initially been training to be a painter, and then so I mean, it wasn't like, you know, she spent a lifetime or something. She got to it fairly young, but yeah, she had trained in a completely different discipline, and then sort of realised, oh, actually, maybe this suits me more. So,
yeah, but you can see the colours and shapes she's using. I believe there was something more interesting, wasn't there? More than just pottery. Am I right?
Yeah. So she does a couple of things. One is that she came up with her own methods of glazing, and she really goes into kind of detailed, quite scientific ways of doing glazing. So that's the finish on the piece. That's a bit interesting. But the other thing she did, and that's quite a sort of scientific thing in many ways, glazing. The other thing she did was she came up with her own kind of writing style which she called Iramise, and it's completely made up, but it looks like, when you first see it, it looks like a genuine script, and I think it's quite a fun, playful thing to do, especially, you know, in India, where, you know, wherever you don't have to go very far to suddenly find a completely different script, a different language. You know, you might be a Gujarati speaker, but suddenly you find Hindi or Malayalam or things which look familiar or things which look completely different and strange. And I think there's something quite sort of fun and funny about a potter kind of purposefully making this made-up language that no one can read, that doesn't make any sense, but that you look at and you think, oh God, that must have some deep, I mean, this must have come from Mohenjo-daro, or something like that.
Oh, come on, let's have a little laugh. What can you see in this, girls? Can you see, Mamta, Parry, what can you see? Because I know I could see, as soon as I saw this letter R, what could you see?
Yeah, I see a Y, I see an E, I see just a lot of intention to put in very distinct patterns and shapes and lettering. There's a lot of love that's been put into it. But I do see a few letters here and there. It's a very interesting, very beautifully done piece.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like this could be from anywhere in the world as well. Like if you look at like ancient languages like Sumerian or Aramaic, and they all have this kind of character, these shapes and tendencies, not quite hieroglyphics, and not for the Egyptians. It's not entirely pictorial. It definitely has a sense of like writing. But yeah, I see this kind of um, this playfulness, like exactly like what James was saying, and I love that about pottery, because there is no limits to your imagination that you can't manifest in pottery. It's such I know people might think of it as a more stunted medium because you're working and making vessels, but what you can choose to do on the surface of those vessels, even if it's small, you can have, like, if you see oriental pieces like ancient Chinese or Japanese pottery, you can have such intricacies in it. And I love that every artist tries to find and make their own mark and make their own way in which they, their pieces will stand out from the lot. And I think this is probably one of the most unique and simple yet beautiful way that Ira has made her own mark in pottery, is to just come up with her own fun language and suddenly give mystique and a sense of intrigue to her what would otherwise just be ordinary, kind of glazed pieces of art. So
yeah, I mean, Parry, I'm thinking, where's it come from? So, and that leads on to a question. I mean, do we have any more slides? Because I'm not sure.
Just the last one, I think.
Okay. The time of firing is also never a straightforward affair. Oh, I like this.
So this is quite an interesting article, and if I could just show you. So the two cups that you see, they are actually espresso cups. And if you can see this photo, you can also see that there are small blue crystals on the espresso cups, even though the cups themselves are like this ombre kind of golden color, amber color, in fact. And what's really interesting is that both the pieces have had exactly the same glaze. So the glaze is, think of it, a glaze as like a color. But the color, when you put it on a piece, tends to usually just be white in color. So you don't actually see this end product unless it's fired at a high temperature, because the whites in them are chemicals. So when you fire them, the chemicals react and you get these beautiful blue crystals. It's called a crystalline glaze. But there's absolutely no difference. These pieces were fired together. They were fired at the same temperature. They came out the same time, and they look nothing alike. And this is a great thing about pottery, which is that firing is a very so you fire pieces to up to like 1,000 degrees, sometimes even 1,600 degrees Celsius, and then these chemicals become these beautiful shapes. But it's unpredictable. There's like only so much you can do and control in pottery, but when you fire it, even the slightest drop of temperature, change in air, like kind of air circulation in the kiln, which is the electric oven in which the pieces are fired, can lead to completely different outcomes. So I love this process of control and being methodical and scientific, creative and artistic, but the element towards the end where you have to let go. You can't actually control what comes out of the kiln. And I love that she kind of also is aware and conscious of that. And to an extent, I think Ira's work it looks forward to it, this sort of experiment, and seeing what it comes out as. And I think that's a really love the unpredictable things in life.
Her work is like a seeker's.
Yeah.
Mamta, what do you think?
I was just going to say, Patty, everything that you just said right now, and then everything you said about the piece of work that we looked at just before in the slide before, really resonated with me, because there is so much about being an artist, and being an artist is such a broad term. Whether you throw pottery, whether you are a painter, whether you create music, or you're a writer, however you show your creativity often comes from such a personal place. It comes from things that you're going through internally, or things that you may not know how to express externally in words. So you put it into forms of art. And Alka, to your point, I'm really curious what compelled Ira to make the art that she made. Where did the idea and the inspiration come from? Why did she put the designs that she did on there? where was her head and heart at when she created even these espresso cups? Why is there more blue glitter on one versus the other? I have so many questions because I feel like art, in the same way that the lyrics of a song, show so much about the person creating it. And the other thing I was thinking about, Pari, just to everything you just said, this is such a meditative process. And meditation looks different to everybody, right? For us, it's about going within and connecting with our hearts. And we meditate on that source of light in our heart. But pottery and art and anything that allows you to zone in on one particular thing is so meditative. And as we're looking through this article and looking at these pieces of work, I can almost feel Ira, getting absorbed into it the same way that we get absorbed in meditation. And
well, Mamata, when we, because we didn't speak to you in advance, we didn't want to, and this was exactly why we didn't, because it was all going to lead to this. And these two wanted to start from the beginning. I said, no, wait. Guys, number one, Mamata has had so many questions. Let's strip it back a bit. So if we could take the slides off, lovely. Right, I know Pari and James are raring to go. My first thoughts were, I was going to ask you, Pari, because you've had that hands-on recently, as well as meditating, you've had that hands-on. Compare the two, give us this whole deeper understanding.
Yeah, I mean, so the first time I tried pottery, it was in Japan, and it's something I always wanted to try in my life. And Japan is like the heart of ceramic art for a very, very long time. And I think that was probably the best way to do it, not just because it was Japan, but my instructor did not speak English. So all I had to look and understand from her was only by seeing. And she did speak in Japanese to explain it, but I didn't understand her words. I was just looking at her hand movements. And there's this bit, so basically when you put a lump of clay on the wheel to throw it, the clay itself, think of it as a mind, as our own mind. It is not really centered. So if you just start trying to shape a clay, it won't really work, it will fall apart because the clay itself is not really in the right shape. So if you've ever seen anyone throw clay, you can just go on YouTube after this chat and just type like throwing clay or centering clay. The first step that an artist would do is to try to bring the clay together and have a center. And the most incredible part about this, because I took pottery lessons after I had this experience in Japan, I actually went to India and I also took pottery lessons in India. The most challenging part of centering clay is the fact that you have to center yourself before you can center clay. Right. So the clay, in order to center it, you also cannot see. So if you just try to center it from what your eyes are seeing, you will miss the body of the clay, which is not centered. So I actually practice centering clay through closing my eyes. So I would actually close my eyes and feel just what my fingers were feeling, where the clay was not centered, where it was trying to kind of fall apart, and just bring it back together to the center. If I gave the thought that it was not going to happen, it will not happen, because your thoughts are so interconnected. And in that moment, you're actually leaving your mind behind. You're trusting your instinct, you're trusting your body, and you're connecting with this clay. And if you know, and that's actually how I learned to center. I was not getting it, like tens of days passed and I couldn't center. And one day I just said, I will not leave the class today till I center. And I had like 4 hours of class that day and actually managed to center it. And I associate that a lot with meditation as well. So I think, Alka, probably you can also you probably have some thoughts about this, like how to center your mind during meditation and connection with this.
Well, when you brought this up, and I promise you it won't take long, but I have a question for James as well, is when you talk about centering, we only, you said closing your eyes. It's that sixth sense, that inner, that deeper. Now, being meditators, all of us, you will understand this concept of going right in and feeling, and that flow is what's coming back up to help with your exterior. Okay, that's how I understand it. So we are connected from in to go out, and that's what you were doing. You weren't using this, you were using that feeling and the flow. And when you, like you said, Ira, and you're meditating, your consciousness is opening. That question of where is it coming from, that's what I felt where your work, eras, where everything's coming from that deeper layers. So James, I have a question for you. This is exciting because I hear you've got lessons coming up.
Wow, yeah. So Pari went away to India, and so this was last winter, and so she said, well, you know, you're gonna be by yourself, and you're gonna be useless. So I'm gonna get something. I'm gonna make sure you do some activities. So she bought me some pottery lessons. A great pottery teacher in London called Mizuru Yamashita, who's does really nice, really great pottery. You can see her Instagram. And yeah, spent a bit of time just sort of learning how to do pottery. And then the idea was that when Pari came back, she'd done pottery lessons in India, that we'd then go and do some pottery lessons together. And then this was about March, and then some events intervened, unfortunately. So yeah, not the worst thing that's happened, I think, this year. But yeah, we're looking forward to sort of being able to sort of go back out there and sort of and do stuff good, particularly for things like you can get a pottery wheel, not too bad, but you know, if you want to do, for example, fire in a kiln, you need something that go to about 1,000 degrees. So your oven at home is not quite going to cut it. Yeah. So you need to kind of you need a bit of professional equipment. So really looking forward to being able to actually sort of do that in the future.
I mean, you never know, James. I could easily join you. I don't mind.
Amazing. Please do. Yeah.
No, do it.
But on that note, James, and everyone, I mean, I know we're talking about pottery, but is there anything else you've done that's given you similar sort of feelings? I keep using the word flow. I mean, Mamita, is there anything you want to? Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, obviously, there's the actual meditation that feels very flow oriented and meditative, but for me, writing is truly the avenue that I use that allows me to expand my consciousness a little bit more. Whenever I get into the zone of writing, I feel like I could be lost there for hours because the words just pour out in the way that I want to. And so when I was a little girl, journal writing was really helpful for me. It was a great way to help me process my feelings or to think about what was going on in my life and try to find a solution for it. And then as I've gotten older, it's become a really great way to share things that I'm going through, not only with myself, but externally as well. And I often find that whenever I'm stuck, and Pari, maybe it's the same for you, whenever you're having a tough day, or James, you have, you know, other modes of doing this as well. Whenever I'm having a tough day or I need to suss through something, if I just grab a diary or I grab my laptop and just start writing it out, the flow of that naturally shows me where I'm at. And writer's block is similar to having a bad meditation. Sometimes it can be hard and frustrating, but the more I practice and the more I work at it, the more I write, the easier that flow is, the more natural it becomes, and the more I expand anything that's going on in my head and heart. So for me, it's always been pen to paper.
Yes. And I mean, diary writing is one of the heartfulness practices. Thank you for bringing that in. And I love this because everything we attach to the heartfulness practice. Why I say that, because many of our viewers have probably joined all the past ones, and we do end up talking about the practice. I have a question though, again, remember I'm the teacher here. So James, do you have this tendency to write and write and write? What is your, what should we call this? Either creativity moment or, like you said, just expressing your flow. What do you do?
Oh, I think I'm sort of in the middle of not quite having that outlet at the minute. I've realized, I think, with that sort of relying on kind of pottery which is a really good one, but if it requires you to be able to get out, it's not great. So obviously there's meditations, there's writing in a journal after meditation, but I need to find that little thing, I think, that I can fall back on, that gives me that sort of sense of I think there's a sense of accomplishment, and I think there's a sense of kind of losing go and new creativity coming out. I can definitely do that actually at work sometimes, even if I'm doing, if something's going really nicely at work, but it doesn't have quite that creativity and that kind of letting go aspect of it. And I really need to find, I think, another kind of activity, something. Maybe I'll take up writing. Maybe that'll be my.
Well, let me give you a tip, James. From my remember I'm just slightly older, experience of life, and I find that it's got to be something. And maybe ladies, you can help me here. Something where you're not even thinking when you're doing it. Like cooking is one. I'm not talking about cooking on the daily, but cooking something and it's just flowing and you're not actually even thinking, it's just da-da-dee. That for me is one. And the other one is, I don't know, do you like dancing or what? I can't imagine you dancing.
I was to say, yeah, dance is another one for me that is really helpful. During this pandemic, my mom and I have been doing this fun fitness practice called Bollyx. It takes Bollywood music and puts it into like a Zumba style dance situation. And I did it a lot last year. Being based in New York, they have a lot of different Bollywood classes like that. And it's so fun because at first you think you look really silly doing all of these moves. And then at some point you're just like, you know what? If I look silly, everyone else looks silly too. Let's just keep going. And it's such a nice way to not think with your mind, but to feel with your body and just let that flow go. So I don't know, that's been really helpful for us during this pandemic as another outlet to really take some space away from our minds.
I'm glad you guys are sharing this because it's very important. There are people out there that are probably wanting this, these lovely ideas. What about you, Pari? What do you do apart from pottery? Well, you can't now anyway. Yeah.
So I don't play the guitar as much anymore, but I used to play it a lot, and that was a really soothing way for me to kind of connect. And it wouldn't even be singing. Sometimes I would just like, strum the chords, and it just felt great. Writing letters to friends and family and postcards, I can really get lost in that. I'm still quite old-fashioned. James once actually complained that my letters are like epic ballads and my cards are like letters because I just have so much to write. And I really get lost in that. Gift wrapping, you'd find this really weird, but like I love wrapping presents and I can really get lost.
It's so methodical. It's so calming, and there's something so fun about making sure like every corner is done really well.
Exactly.
And putting the tissue paper in the right way in the bag. I hear you there.
Oh my gosh, I'm sending all the gifts to you to wrap. Oh, I don't know. Oh no, I don't have. My daughter Aura loves wrapping, and she, like you guys, very particular. Wow, that says a lot about you and your inner self. You realize that, don't you? That you're calm, you're thinking each step through, and that's another flow. That is. Watch next time. So yeah, this is interesting. I'm aware that we've got a few minutes left, and I know we haven't really hit that spot. I can feel it in Pari and James. Come on. So going back to the pottery, going back to your practice of meditation, why the two? Why the article? Why did you feel you had to share it on Coffee Talks? And yeah, please, the floor's yours again.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of there was a little bit of an interest, a bit of an odd article to sort of fit in this, though it might be a bit different. I think, as we sort of touched on before, there are parallels between doing something like this and meditation. One of the good ones is that getting back to that idea of every time you fire it, every time you do it, you get something different, even if you're using the same chemicals, because it's using your hands, the size is always a little bit different, unless you're really excellent potter, in which case you're gonna aim for consistency. And I sort of remember going to a heartfulness retreat, and one of the, quite early on, I was about 6 months in to practicing, and one of the things that someone sort of said at there was that you'll have really good meditations. You have a meditation like, oh my god, that was amazing, but you should never aim for that to always relive that. Each one will be different, and you shouldn't try and chase an old one. You should just accept that you're going to get different experiences. And I thought stuck with me and really helped with meditation, because it was no longer about like achieving the thing I'd got before. But it works. It's true with pottery as well. You can't achieve the same thing second time. It'll always be different, and that's a good thing. And if you need to embrace that, and also you can muck up. You'll destroy pieces. And you know, my mug here, which I made, the handle fell off because I was really stupid. I did a really stupid mistake basically, and the handle fell off. It's now glued back on. But it's quite good that you don't sort of hold these things really dear. You let go and you learn to accept what happens, and you accept the difference. That's quite a nice thing about pottery, and I think it reflects well in meditation as well.
Thank you so much. Now, I'm aware that the team behind all this are saying 1 minute left, 2 minutes left, but guess what, guys? Let's just carry on talking. We may be lucky that we could just carry on. Please take this moment to share. Mamata or Pari, please come on.
Pari, please feel free.
So I think James kind of covered it, but I think another thing that I wanted to really highlight was that the thing I wanted to add is that I also wanted to pick this article because James and I really benefited from the experience of shrine pottery, and I think it made us find another medium to think about and talk about meditation from a different perspective. And I think that always helps you to reconnect and deepen your connection with your heartfulness practice. But even if for no other reason, just try it. It's so much fun getting your head, hands a little bit dirty and muddy and trying to think differently and actually not think at all and do something so creative and just see what emerges. And just, I think the really important thing is that allowing patience to be with you when you're doing something new is really important. Yeah. And even if it's not something new, you should still have patience. So for me, I've been doing trying pottery for a while, and I'm still nowhere near as good. I've made just one bowl, but I think it's really important to have that patience with a lot of faith that you will figure it out, you will get it right. And even if you don't figure it out and get it right, you just do something fun. And it's looking for that will always help you doing new things and getting better at doing new things. So patience, and definitely try pottery. I'm sure you'll love it.
I think, guys, what I'm taking from this program today was especially that we're still in lockdown and still the unknown, that you three have shared some new things that, pottery may not be, you're not able to do going out, but maybe you could get something and just, play around like you said. But, the whole dancing and maybe, finding this outlet that James has mentioned. And I agree. This is the new norm, what's happening, the new norm. These are opportunities for all of us to go, right, what could I do new? Because we have the time. We were never given this. We used to moan, and now today. So I'm grateful that you have shared. So I'm going to throw this last question. We've got to wrap it up. They're going to kill me otherwise, right, guys? The beautiful article, she went and did pottery. She wanted to be a painter. I'm just connected. You've linked it with heartfulness meditation, which I think, wow. Any last sharing thoughts or comments, please?
Oh, I was going to go, you go first. I sort of just think that this kind of idea of this kind of I don't know, sort of, it's somewhere lands somewhere in this odd sort of bit between sort of playfulness and acceptance and perseverance and creativity. It's got these all touches on all these interesting things, and I think you're probably right that some activities might draw out maybe one aspect more than another, but they're all going to touch on those things. I think it's very difficult to do something that you get lost in that way, that doesn't have an element of playfulness and fun. Pottery is quite nice because you're getting your hands dirty like a kid again, but it could be dance moving to Bollywood songs like as if no one's watching, or whatever it is. It's got that sort of creativity. It's got that kind of losing yourself, and also I think anything that you do like this, you have to make mistakes, and you have to get it wrong. Sometimes, you know, that's a permanent. You have a permanent reminder of that mistake. But you know, other times, but having that and recognizing that you aren't gonna replicate the same thing. It's never going to be the same thing twice, and that's a good thing. That's a really good. That's what makes it more interesting.
Super. Harry, Mamata, anything?
I think everything that we've talked about today is making me recognize the simplicity of so much of what we do. I think oftentimes we get a little nervous to pick up a new hobby, whether it be throwing pottery or writing or dancing or whatnot, because we expand it so large in our minds that we make it seem unattainable. And I think sometimes people, whether it be us, you know, in our own meditation practices, or people who are brand new to meditation, probably do the same thing. There are definitely complications that come with a practice, and growing into a skill, no matter what it is, has its own challenges. But there's so much simplicity in just picking up a piece of paper and drawing for the first time, or sitting down to close our eyes and meditate, or going to our basements or to a studio and just moving our bodies to music. It's so simple, and it's such a metaphor for the way life is. We often overcomplicate everything, and if we just took a moment to recognize how rudimentary everything is and enjoy the simplicity of it, I think it'll be easier not only to bring those new ideas and hobbies into our worlds, but to really enjoy them and not to treat them as something methodical. It isn't like, oh, I'm in lockdown, so I need to learn 10 different languages, or I need to learn X, Y, and Z new skill because suddenly I have all this time. It's instead the perspective of how life is meant to be enjoyed. Let me enjoy this meditation. Let me enjoy that peace within. Let me try to create some pottery because I want to be able to move my hands. We're given everything we need right here in our body, whether it be our physicality or in our mind or in our hearts. And if we recognize just how uncomplicated that is, I think it'll make things so much more enjoyable.
Absolutely, absolutely. Spot on. Oh, Harry, my love, yeah.
Nothing. I think what Mamta said is a lovely way to end this. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. May I take this opportunity to say, guys, pause. You know, I'm sure back in New York, like here in the United Kingdom, Christmas is coming up and all these thoughts and feelings. But be kind to yourself, you know, pause and just breathe and go with the flow, the inner flow, and not the external flow. Sorry, I'm sounding, but I feel the more I share this with everybody, the more we can get through what's going on, because it's not nice out there. But listening to you guys, and it's so lovely to have you. So I tell you what, let's not end it here. Guys, please watch not just this November edition, but really, really look out for the December edition. And when I say the December edition, not just coffee talks, but from what I hear through the grapevine, there's something big happening with the Heartfulness Magazine. I'm not sure if I should put Mamta on the spot. Mamta, could you entice people, but without telling?
Yes, I'm very good at that. I'm very good at being very secretive, but being very manipulative with my words and saying, but to look forward to it. This December edition of the magazine is very, very cool. We are pulling articles from some pretty amazing places. And I think this last edition of 2020 is not only a cognizance of how tough this last year has been, but it's also an attempt to recognize that we have to move forward. And as we ease into 2021, I know everyone is really looking forward to hitting the reset button. Our goal with the December edition is to give people some perspective and tools that they can carry into their day-to-day lives into 2021 in a way that'll help them still deal with the emotions of the pandemic and of 2020, but to do so in a way that's really healthy and soul and center focused.
Fantastic. I'm excited already. And again, I'll repeat, please look out. These online magazines are for free. It's just your time. Click on. look out for the November edition, the December edition, the November edition for Coffee Talks is at the end of this month. And then look out for the coffee, I'm blah, blah, blah today. I apologize. And look out for the December edition, which comes out in the first week of December. So guys, thank you so much. I really appreciated it. I had lots of fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
So take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.